We are
Hello.
now
The Band Batch is back, and today we're going to be talking about Tatooine Rhapsody,
Yeah.
the rock opera, the anime rock opera, the Star Wars anime rock opera that is Tatooine Rhapsody.
First one in existence.
Very
Yes.
excited.
Yes, rock space opera, space rock opera.
We have so much to talk about. First of all, let us know. Hi everyone. Hi Stuart. Hi Jeannie. Hi Jonah. Awesome. Let us know if our sound levels are good at any point. Let us know at any point if things are getting too loud or too soft, because we have a lot of instruments, as usual. Okay, so let's dive right into it. Start us off, James.
Do we want to do a little quizzing?
Sure.
Yeah, why not?
I prepared a little thing, and I just want to get this out of the way because this is about as good as I can.
So you want to go first?
Okay.
All right, wait.
Y'all.
For those who are new here, we're about to do a quiz, and James is going to play something, and we're going to guess where it's from in the episode.
And I believe it looks like my video's laggy, or some of our video is laggy. Is that true, y'all? It seems like it. I'm looking in the YouTube.
For all of us.
Oh my god.
We'll get
Not
this.
sure why.
We'll get this.
We'll get it one day. Yeah, we're trying everything.
Okay. All right. So let me just remind myself how to play this thing real quick. Let's see. All right. Here we go. All right. Okay, cool. Okay, got it. All right. Yeah, where does this happen? I'm not a guitarist, by the way. Got it. Okay, cool. Sorry. Okay, everyone forget everything that just happened. This is my warm-up. Oh, that's what I did. Okay, I got it now, everybody. Okay,
Can't wait till it looks
I'm not a guitarist. What in gosh name is happening there? Are you you're reaching out. Okay, I see what's happening. Okay.
It's a great part, Joe.
Isn't it great?
We're so funny.
I love that. I think did we imitate it correctly, James? Did we find the right spot?
Yes, you did. Okay, yes.
I love that part too, because there's a little flute solo based on the.
And did you? Yeah, based on what?
On the big song Galactic Dreamer.
Yeah, we get a little.
Is that the name of the? Is that the name of the song?
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know that.
Our Star Waver rock band.
Yeah, Star Waver.
Okay, I have a funny story. Oh, I was gonna tell your funny story.
Oh yeah. No, tell my funny story.
So when Star Wars Visions dropped, James is like, "Hurry up! I have an idea for like the Tatooine Rhapsody live stream." And I was like, "What is the idea?" And he was like, "Well, if they didn't mention the band name, we'll kind of go around and I'll guess what the band name should be called, or we'll come up with the name."
I didn't remember hearing the band name. Where I still don't know. Where did they say the band name, first of all?
Throughout the episode.
Very first when they very first start playing, he's like, "We're your band, Star Waver."
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Because he said, because I thought it was a little bit interesting that he said, "We're your band."
Yeah. Your band, Star Waver.
So you said it. Oh, they do have a name. It's Star Waver. Yeah. And then I said what?
Wait, what are you?
What?
No, what did you
No,
say,
you're
James?
you're telling the story.
Yeah, that was the end of the story. The end of the story.
Oh, well, my
culminated.
story was that Star Waver. I keep thinking of Waiver, like it's like the contract you signed to go on Star
Oh
Tours.
yeah. Yes.
Like to me, Star Waver is like not a very spicy band name.
Oh yeah.
Kind of. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know how we feel about Star Waver. I'm curious what the chat feels like. Does that sound like the band that's playing that song? To me, that's not a very good band name. However, I don't know what y'all's experience has been, but for me, like my weakest strength is naming an ensemble that I'm in. Like it's it's the last thing that ever happens when you're in a band. Usually, at least in my experience. Like in my experience, it's like we get all the music and we're like, what are we gonna call ourselves? And it like takes for. I almost quit a band once because the band name was so bad. Like the proposed band name was so bad, I actually was like, guys, if we name our band name that, I am quitting this band. That's how bad that band name is. So I don't know what your experience has been in naming your bands in the past.
Oh,
Well-
it's always that way. Yeah,
Right?
and always and the only times I've ever been successful to name a group, it's come in such a way after the fact, like you said, that it usually has
Yes.
nothing. Like I've been part of two good groups in my life. One was called Whale, and that stood for Whale has a lame
Nice.
yeah, Whale, and that stood for Whale has a lame explanation because that's all we could figure out. What was. And then
Oh, that's really good.
And the only other one
That's really
that
bad.
stuck was
Xanthe is not a fan, by the way.
no. We were a noise group, and we would show up to these noise festivals, and everyone would have these like extreme names, you know, with X's and letters and all these things like that. And we would just show up as Justin and Brian, which let us stood out for a while. But then we went camping, and we were covered in caterpillars overnight. So we became the Cannibalistic Caterpillar.
Hey, that's cool. It's cool when you have a story behind a band name, you know? I wonder what the story behind the Star Wavers is, or whether they just probably thought it was just like, oh, that's cool sounding, so that's our name, right?
Well, maybe they added an I later when they signed with Jabba, got the waiver.
They signed the way they got the waiver for Jabba. Here's our Star Waiver. Star Waiver. But yes, I really enjoyed this cue here. This was, and I don't have a delay pedal, but imagine this with a delay pedal, which would make, or an echo pedal. You know, basically makes the sound echo softly and ripple afterwards. So you really get that spacey. I loved how the electric guitar was just the soundtrack of the whole episode, and there's a little texture.
Except for the beginning.
The very beginning.
Yeah, right.
By the way, I haven't shared my best band name.
Oh yes, what is it?
Oh yeah,
which is Alderaan is Super Gone.
I love it. See, puns are good, and rhymes and puns are great. I'm so into it. Alderaan is Super Gone.
Alderaan Reasons?
Alderaan Reasons for that band name.
I'll play something.
Let's hear it.
Yeah, so.
But that part was super soft, so that probably doesn't sound too recognizable. But the beginning part.
What do you think, Justin?
It's reminding me of the part of when our good friend Boba Fett first arrives, and they say, "Let's rock him," and we get the flaming bass guitar. Is that?
Yeah. Imagine having that like as your instrument, right? You like always can defend yourself on stage, right?
Right. What about you, James? What do you think?
This is I think this is the Boba Fett section because there's a I love this shuffle 6/8 beat.
And do you mean like in so kind of in the middle?
We're still in the venue, I think.
Yeah, I think this is the Boba Fett section because right around that section, the drum beat is something like this. this is really the only section in the whole, to my ears, that I heard that wasn't in like a straight 4/4. This is the one groove that was in a different time signature, I heard.
What are some of the words that you're associating with this? Like, what are they saying?
Oh, like dialogue?
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know, actually, honestly.
I like a lot of blasters.
Is it like after they've been followed? Like persistent, isn't he? Punch it, like that part.
This to me is like they're still at the club, right? Getting shot at by
Boba and his goons, so it's a lot of blaster sounds. I don't know. I can't remember the dialogue in that section besides "Let's rock 'em."
Yeah.
This Jabba want my autograph.
Yeah. So it's actually the very, very opening.
This is the very opening of the entire episode?
Yes.
Wow.
Well, that's really interesting because then that's the reason why
Before
my
we
ears
hear any
were
rock music.
Oh, because that's really interesting because then that theme continue or like that rhythm continues on into the Boba scene. Because for sure, the Boba scene is in another 12/8 that has. Can you play that rhythm again, Xanthe?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's so interesting.
Jonah, exactly. Order 66. Mm-hmm.
Oh, totally. And so once we're like in the shootout with Boba, we've got this. I know.
Yeah.
Let's rock on.
Awesome heavy metal section. Yeah.
Absolutely, rock 6/8. I love it.
And I love that there was
reminds
this order
me of the Red Hot Chili Peppers version of Higher Ground. That's kind of that groove, which is
I'm not familiar.
So Red Hot Chili Peppers have a great cover of Stevie Wonder's Higher Ground, and it's basically that beat, just like keep on moving to higher ground. Yeah, it's a rockin' version of that tune.
Interesting.
Kind of a 6/8 punk rock shuffle.
So with from Order 66, so that kind of confirms that Jay was escaping the temple during this time. Is that a connection?
He is a former, right? So I think he is a former Jedi who escaped Order 66. That's why he had a lightsaber.
Yeah, I was trying to figure out.
But I guess I don't know exactly where at this point, I don't know exactly where he came from. Does anyone know?
Yeah, I didn't recognize the planet or anything like that. But I just love the idea that, like, you usually get these things where they're like hiding, like Jedi are hiding out, like, doing their, maybe trying to keep a low profile, and he's just like he gives up being a Jedi. Like, I'm gonna be a rock star. That's pretty awesome. I don't know. Played Fallen Order. I know Xanthe. I still need to get you to play with me. But this reminds me of Cal's journey a little bit. He survives Order 66 and kind of hides out on a junk planet. But this is like if Cal also had like a love of punk rock, So I thought that was cool.
It's cool because I was watching the extra features, and I love this idea of a Jedi Padawan. I don't know if he was Padawan or a full-blown Jedi at this point. It's not escaping, but kind of having this running away from something in a way to join this band, and then we also have this duality with a hut. I love the idea of a rebel hut, rebel in the sense of like I'm a rebelling teenager kind of a thing. You don't understand me, Dad.
Right.
I'm gonna go start a band. I loved that.
For all of us Sopranos fans, he's the Christopher Moltisanti of Star Wars. Christopher always wanted to go off and be an actor and be in the movie business, but he was like kind of stuck being a mobster throughout the Sopranos.
Poor
so
thing.
This is like if he actually got to go live his dream. Yeah.
By the way, James, you have a buzz coming through on your end.
Oh, that's just my guitar still on. Sorry.
Oh, okay, cool.
Thank you.
Yeah, I wasn't sure if I
just trying to set the punk rock mood for our stream. It's just have a constant distortion pedal.
Incessant, yeah. I felt like I really I related to the hut, and I related to what's the singer's name? Ski.
Jay.
No. Jay. And I related to Jay, I felt.
Totally.
Totally. Okay, can I do one? I got one.
Yeah, Justin.
Got one. Let's see. We all hear that?
Thanks, Xanthe, by the way, for covering the non-punk rock version. Somebody needed
Yeah, right.
to cover the stuff that wasn't punk, and I appreciated, because I was just like, let's get to the rock when I went to go listen to it again. I like completely ignored the intro to it. I was like, nah, whatever. Let me get my guitar out.
Okay, I got it. Okay, here it is. This one isn't quite punk, but it stood out to me. I like that. It's okay. Kind of
Yes.
started with that.
Yeah, and we have some nice hi-hat 16th notes going on. Yeah.
Where was this?
Anyone have a guess? I think
I guess.
we all know where it is. It seems. Jonah says Slave One
Yeah.
chasing them.
Uh-huh.
Yes.
Yep. I love that they gave Boba Fett this like nice heavy metal breakdown.
Yeah.
On the chase there. I'm a huge metalhead, so I love the fact that anime in general, not just Star Wars Visions, but a lot of anime shows have embraced heavy metal
Love it.
in such a poppy way, which is
Totally.
fun.
So,
for me.
question: do you think the heavy metal is tied to Boba, or do you think it's tied to the action and like where is it living? I guess it doesn't really super matter, but I've been thinking a lot in the past couple days about what a rock opera is.
Right? I felt, to me it was like, I mean, not Boba's theme in a way, if we were gonna call it that, but it was very connected to Boba, especially when he's because we all thought the opening riff that you were playing was when Boba was attacking, which was also this kind of punk rock heavy metal-ish kind of thing going on, and him being such a menacing character.
Yeah.
I felt like it was a good representation.
That's an interesting. It's a really interesting question, Xanthe, because in genre, there's definitely a very stark difference between the music that accompanies the group in terms of genre, not just like melody or texture, etc. But there's like clear difference in the rock genre that we're accessing. Like you said, like Boba is almost like prog metal in some ways. It's not like straight up like death metal, right? It's like there's a little bit more. There's a little less distortion, and it's a little bit it's a little bit less crazy.
There's more than one note. Yeah.
But it's definitely not like, indie punk, like the band typically has like a little bit of like the Strokes in there, or once they start playing, we'll talk about the song at the end. That's kind of, to me, it sounded a lot like Sum 41, and that kind of like emo punk, but definitely not metal. Like the band to me. Yeah. To me, there's a lot of Interpol, a little bit of
like
Interpol
a little bit of
there.
Motion City soundtrack.
Motion City soundtrack. Yep.
Shout out to Tony.
I think this stream is just going to be half of us just getting nostalgic over our childhoods, because I guess I have to say that like when you think rock opera, it's kind of interesting that we're pulling now, because the original rock operas are like The Who's Tommy, or like some of even like Jesus Christ Superstar, or something like that. Like those are the old style rock that usually pulled rock and roll from like the 60s and 70s. Now we're watching in a rock opera, and it's all music from when we were kids. It's like it's all basically.
They were okay. I know that like if you they were pulling from like the 70s, like Ramones and stuff, and I feel like that style of music, I feel like it never died, and
of course not. Yeah,
like it just maybe was reaching a pop. It's sort of like how rap has always been around, but now rap is pop, you know? So at the time, that sort of emo rock or whatever was pop.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
But it's, yeah, I feel like that has been around. Yeah, I guess, yeah, that's all I'm saying. I mean, I wasn't super familiar. Like, I've never heard The Who, I don't think. Or,
I bet you
or I
You
probably
probably have.
have. I just am not.
Probably have.
I'm just
yeah.
not super. Yeah, I'm just not
Who
familiar.
are you? Who? I
Or,
really want to know.
No,
Teen
I'm not sure what
in
that is. But
Wasteland.
anyway, I don't.
Out here in the field, I fight for
I don't know what's
my
happening.
Sorry. All right. Sorry. Obviously, everyone can tell we're very excited about this episode.
Although I will admit, when talking about this rock opera kind of idea, I was kind of half hoping, or maybe a lot hoping, that this was actually going to be like a rock musical
Yeah, well,
in a way.
Yeah.
You
Well,
know,
let's talk
almost
about
like
that, yeah.
touching on like Queen's Bohemian Rhapsody
Is that a
in
musical?
a way. No, but it's almost like a short musical in its sense, because they're playing a character through these different songs and phases in the song. You know, and the song's not as long as you'd think it is too, which is fun.
Yeah. Well, I guess I was going to say, if there's one channel on YouTube that should probably make this point, it's this channel, which is This Isn't a Rock Opera. They keep billing it like a rock opera, but
why not?
rock operas, because a rock opera typically by definition has the or not like all the dialogue, but definitely has characters singing like outside. It's not diegetic music. It's music sung to sing the narrative. It's an
As a
opera,
narrative,
which
yeah.
is
I am not sure I agree with that distinction. Or okay, so you mean diegetic, meaning like the fact that they gave a performance.
Yeah, it's not like let's
Basically.
watch a band give a performance. It's like the characters are singing their dialogue, or singing how they feel, or having musical numbers like a musical would have, right?
But that can
Yeah.
absolutely be part of it.
Oh, totally.
Feel free
Totally,
to chime
totally.
in the
Yeah,
chat if you have thoughts
this,
on what a rock
I
opera
would
is.
say that this episode had none of that, and
So
that's
you're talking
what makes
about
it not
didn't
a
have
rock
any
opera.
You're saying it didn't have any spoken singing. I mean, sorry, sung
Exactly.
speaking.
Yeah, the
Recitative.
characters aren't singing to each other; they're just speaking normally. You're watching something happen like it would happen in real life, right? As opposed to a rock opera, which typically has characters singing like musical numbers, like a musical, right? I'm not saying it's all sung, but there are, like a rock opera specifically means this is a rock movie, or a movie about a band, right? It's not really a rock opera, even though it's been billed that way. So just like I said, when I heard they were making a rock opera, that's what I was expecting. I was expecting
That's what I was expecting too.
to be singing musical numbers to each other, and that did not happen in this episode, which is fine. I mean, that didn't like ruin my enjoyment.
Of course. But I think it's interesting. I do think it's interesting to talk about the terminology and just what it means to different people. Because like I sort of like posted on Twitter last night what is a rock opera, and was sort of reading the different responses of, you know, how they felt about rock opera, and some of it was like more cut and dry sort of like definitions, and it seemed like a lot of people were saying that rock opera is a concept album, like
often it has been. Sure.
I had previously thought like a rock opera was like a staged, like a musical basically, but in the rock genre. But after doing a lot of digging, it's been a little bit of a wormhole. Like, it seems that rock opera actually is primarily, or at least had its origins in just being a concept album, whether or not it was going to be performed for the stage at all. Like, it's basically the synonymous with concept album almost. And like everything in art, a rock opera is a rock opera if they've decided to call it a rock opera. You know, it's not like a certain checklist, because a lot of things I think could be called rock operas that meet the same criteria, but that choose not to be called rock operas, and vice versa. But like, then I think about what opera is in the classical world, and that means that's such a widely defined term. Like, that doesn't even mean one thing. So like, there are certain, you know, styles of opera where everything is sung, like James is talking about, but then there are ones that don't. And there's just it's just
Totally, and especially when
Yeah.
we get into like modern music, contemporary music, post World War II style of let's question what what is a traditional opera, because I've definitely been part of new music operas that have no singing at all, or things that are called operas that have really no narrative almost in a way. So in this modern world of redefining what it was, kind of a thing. But opera, I guess, to me, just in my mind, is still like a very much a staged, sung thing, because that's a little bit separate from a musical, I guess, because musicals
Yeah.
seem like it's like again, for me in my experience, musicals tend to have not just spoken dialogue, but it's a play with musical numbers, versus
Yes.
an opera tends to be again, for me, it's a full out musical production.
Yeah.
A musical is in like composed full out the entire way, and that's why there's always like, what's that? Les Mis? Is it a musical
Uh-huh.
or is it an opera? Kind of a thing. There's
Right.
always that argument. Or then you could even look at another famous one, Sweeney Todd, which
Mm-hmm.
is almost both, if not kind of a thing. It follows a
Really?
lot of operatic things, but then a lot of musical things, and then a lot of things that just don't make sense.
but there are a lot of
Right.
operas that have speaking, like plain speaking too. So
Sure.
it's
Totally. I agree with you. Yeah. As the thing, as the idea, the evolution of an opera from back when it
Yeah.
was the royal court of Austria putting on an Italian opera, kind of a thing. Um,
mm-hmm.
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
to
For
like
instance,
what Philip
like
Glass
we
does.
had mentioned Who's Tommy, that there's no speaking dialogue in the Who's Tommy, because it is a stage production as well.
Hmm.
They've,
But it is
it's
an
been
original.
staged.
But it was first a
Originally a
concept album,
concept
right?
album,
Yeah.
but all of the narrative, all the dialogue, everything is part of is sung, right?
Mm.
Um, and yeah, so I think it's definitely an interesting conversation starter when we're considering, like, do we call this a rock opera? Should we? Who cares? Whatever.
Well, I mean, I think we should, because that's what they call it.
Yeah, but it's also, it's also worth, like,
But it
it's
is,
also worth
yeah, it's fun to talk about
where
what,
yeah,
where it fits in, and
because when we're looking at the narrative, we can see there are no situations in which characters are singing in which they wouldn't be singing in the quote unquote real life version of it, right? There's no situations in which characters are singing in a situation that would otherwise not be musical, right?
for me, that
Which
doesn't necessarily. Oh, okay. For me, that doesn't necessarily bother, or not. I mean, not that it bothers you. I don't think it bothers you. I'm just saying, like, for
Nope.
me, I don't think. I think there are other. For some reason, I still buy the, like, definition of rock opera, and there
Sure.
were times where, like, the line between sort of diegetic and, like, the fourth wall or whatever, there were times where I thought it was a little bit unclear, where something would kind of transform from being in, like, score versus performance.
Yeah.
And yeah, and I I haven't, like, super formulated my thoughts on this, but I've, like, there are defined sort of acts, or, different cues that go with different action and different, like, oh no, this is happening, and, like, now this is happening. Um, and then I also think about how much of that might be imaginary. Like, what if they're not that they're, like, force singing to each other, but, like, it's sort of like a connection that is because we're watching it in a film. It's not explicitly, like, sung to each other, but, like, when Guy's, like, holding his hand out, I feel like that's almost like he's singing to Jay while doing that, even though it's not actually happening. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, it feels to me.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's a very musical. It's a very musical episode. That's kind of the underpinning. I mean, the music is almost like a character in the episode.
Yeah. Someone on Twitter said something interesting. 5-track usually includes musical theme, or basically 5-track was basically saying that like sometimes it's a way of posing as cultured and sort of coming at it from a rock perspective of, you know, one trope is that rock is seen as marginal form, kid stuff, blah blah blah. Sort of calling it opera to kind of get it through the door, the work through the critical
that's
door
a
to
good
make
point.
it seem like higher
That's a
art.
good point. It's a marketing decision in many
Yeah.
ways, right? And so I mean, here's the thing. Like, I'm not gonna not call it a rock.
Oh, for sure, for sure.
But however, I'm gonna challenge our viewers and anybody on the stream that watches this to please give me one other example of a rock opera that doesn't have musical numbers like this one. Like, please, like, tell me. Well, give me one other one that in existence that doesn't have like sung, acted out musical numbers that aren't being played by like an actual band that's part of the show. So that's what I would say. This might be the first one in history that self purports to call it a rock opera, but doesn't do that. So I will say that. That's the only thing I'll say.
I mean, how cool though.
Ones where they don't spontaneously break out into performance,
right? Because usually it's like
explain their feelings.
Don't go. I love you. And then it's like that whole thing, right?
I mean, how cool would it have been if Boba Fett just walked in and just had this gorgeous voice pop out? You know,
See, this is where I'm going with this. It's like
Yeah.
exactly. That's the frustration that lies. It's like you tell me there's a rock opera with Boba Fett in it, and you were telling me that we don't get Tim Morrison like singing like, "Are you a real Mandalorian?" You know, like come on.
Yeah. I feel you. That would have been cool.
Unleashes some sort of like death growl, for, with this heavy metal kind of a thing going on. Oh, that would have been good.
I'm
Anyway,
just curious, before we move on from this, I'm curious, chat, how familiar are you with opera? Not just rock opera, like either opera in general or rock opera specifically, or even musicals. Jonah says, imagine they sing the song from the holiday special.
Yes.
But yeah, basically the three of us have just been talking about the role of song and speaking in these art forms and the degree to which things that are normally spoken are going to be sung or not. And the point was that in this short, it seemed like they weren't singing that much, which is true. So that was a fun diversion.
Yeah.
Where were we? I mean, okay.
Justin just gave us that
Boba Fett.
Boba Fett
chase.
Boba Fett chase.
So
is it my turn? No, I guess.
Sure. I mean, another thing about the Boba Fett chase is it was like a very distinct, diminished. Yeah. So that chord being outlined just continually was a diminished chord, D diminished. And so, which is a kind of a cramped chord, if you think about it. Would be D major. Would be D minor. It would be D diminished. So, yeah.
Those tritones, the devil's chord, right?
And I will say, like, metal music is very known for using a lot of diminished chords and a lot of tritones. So it was very distinctly metal, as we were saying.
Oh, absolutely. I think there's I love hearing the cross sometimes when metal crosses between classical ideas and rock. I am a shameless fan of the Trans-Siberian Orchestra, so
I'm a like I said earlier, I'm a huge metalhead, and I've always joked metal is just classical music just turned on up to 11 and with the distortion pedal. I mean, you listen to
a lot of similarities.
There is a lot of the especially in the guitar solo techniques.
I mean, if you follow me on Instagram, you know that I like to do guitar solos on the violin.
Yes.
So.
Been loving those.
Thank you.
Yeah, I definitely think there's definitely a conversation there that kind of to jump off of what you were noting, Xanthe, that your Twitter follower had mentioned in terms of just like status and seriousness that people take rock music and subgenres of rock music. And I think that metal is a perfect example of something that doesn't get taken very serious by many either musicians or the general populace. But in many ways, there's like some absolutely incredible technicians that work in metal. But sometimes, maybe the general non-musical population might think like, oh, they're a bunch of scary punk rock kids that play metal in their basement, right? But it's like really like kids that have been absolutely shredding for, and practice hours upon hours. There's a reason why I'm not very good at double bass drum pedals, is because it seemed too hard when I was a kid. And I was like, no, thank you. I think I'll do something that requires a little less leg, basically doing leg day at the gym, so
I
so so I think metal is so much metal is played by absolutely incredible technical musicians.
Amazing technicians. I mean,
Yeah.
not just the guitar style, the drumming style, things like that, and some
Oh,
of these more modern groups that have been active in the last 10 years. Groups like Meshuggah from Denmark, or
Mushuggah, yeah.
Gojira from France, and then even though it's not as technical sometimes, but the changing time signatures of the band Tool,
I mean,
they
metal
all
and
these
time
groups
signatures
will.
is a whole thing.
Oh
Oh,
yeah,
yeah.
metal and rhythm in general.
Math metal or
Math metal, math
Math
rock.
rock. Yeah.
math rock.
Dillinger
James.
Escape Plan, yes.
Sarah
Dillinger
Dwin
Escape
says
Plan.
Boba Fett's theme in this episode reminds me of the guitar riff from Don't Fear the Reaper. Which is very. I'm not familiar.
Gunk, 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 gunk with the cowbell. We just need the cowbell, right?
The thing with metal is I feel like from the musician circles I know, at least, metal is very highly respected in terms of the virtuosity, the virtuosity required to play metal. But I get what you're saying. Like there is a little bit of, there are some people who, pass it off because, well, I mean, they're not really looking at the musicianship so much as like the packaging surrounding it. But
yeah, I think it's also like, I think it's aged well in many ways.
Yeah,
and
I think
our
you're right.
generation is more accepting. Like you said, some of these things are like kind of, they've been around a long time. But back in the, maybe 10 or 15 or 20 years ago, metal and punk and all those things weren't taken very seriously by certain circles, because the kids just hadn't grown up yet,
So, okay, one thing that I've heard a lot of people talk about, and maybe Japanese version, I've heard that a lot. Like, oh, the song is so much better in Japanese. This is like just something that I've heard in a few spaces. What do you think about that? Because I've watched it in both languages. I primarily watched it in English, but just to see how the song lined up, I was curious. What are some things you all noticed about that? How do you feel?
I kind of agree that I liked it in Japanese a little bit better than I liked it in English.
Why do you think that is?
Part of it was I'm trying to word this right. It's the direct translation and how the song was written. Most likely, if not definitely, written in Japanese. The lyrics were by, I have this, Masaya Sakuda. The music was by Yoshiaki Dewa, performed by Satoshi Nonpe, who is part of a Japanese punk group called I love this, Pachinko Nopilger. It's probably saying this horrifically wrong. So the way that it was written with the Japanese lyrics, I mean, in the language that it was written in, I'm not wording this. I'm not getting this thought out correctly. I feel like
I think the syllables
was,
and the stresses lined up better.
Yeah,
that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm trying to say. The syllables and the stresses lined up better, and then trying to do a direct translation in a way, because I feel like even in other animes, and then what's that company? 4Kids will take it and like English translate the theme song. They'll change the lyrics to fit an English aesthetic in a way. And if you directly just tried to translate it and put it in there, you'd almost have to change the music itself, not just the lyrics, but like how the music is sung itself.
Classic example of that is the Girl from Ipanema, the classic song. The lyrics are not 1 in 1. between direct translation. There's the English version is possibly just as famous as the Portuguese, and it wouldn't work the same way if they directly translated it. So
are you saying in Tatooine Rhapsody they did a direct translation, which was maybe a little bit awkward?
I felt like it did.
Okay. By the
Yeah,
way,
if
hello,
I
Kyle
felt-
Katarn.
hey, Kyle.
Yeah, I felt it was a little awkward and cheesy. I'm gonna say it, cheesy,
Okay. Jeannie
in a weird
says,
way. You know, kind of. It felt a little cheesy to
Why
me,
the
and
letters are so-
in that English direct translation.
Yeah.
But for some reason, in Japanese, even if you're reading the translation in English, it felt more sincere. Is maybe what I'm going for? What are you
so
gonna say,
I have
Dave?
this thought that like, okay, whenever I watch, first of all, I'll read Jeannie's comment in a second, but whenever I'm watching like foreign films that I need subtitles for, like English subtitles, there's this sense that I can't help, that I can't help because benefit of disbelief or whatever, like benefit of the doubt, but it just like it feels like the foreign films in the language that I don't understand somehow seem more fluid, or like, somehow I just, my mind glosses over things that I maybe would nitpick in English, but like because it's another language, I take it as like it, making more sense than it does. So like because I don't speak Japanese, I can't I can only say that like to me it sounds really fluid, but like also maybe someone watching something in English would think that sounds really smooth too. But we
Right.
kind of have this like bias because we know English, so like we're able to know that, pick out like which word maybe was emphasized more than would normally be. Like we have like much stricter intuition about like the scansion of the poetry and whatever, like everything.
Oh yeah.
And so I honestly don't know, but like Jeannie says Japanese has fewer syllables than English, and almost all the words end in vowel sounds, with the exception of some words end in N. That makes sense.
So
That
I'm going
makes
to offer
sense.
counterpoint to that, Justin. Not a counterpoint, but just like a different opinion, I should say, or a different reaction to it, which was
Totally.
I really like the weirdness of it, actually. Like I really enjoyed that things seemed a little bit, and I'm like I totally understand not liking it, but to me I was like, this is kind of weird. Like there's like some of the cadences of the sentences Fatilla string. I think they even said "Hey say," like they were chanting like "Hey say," which was what was that
Hey,
lyric
say,
after that?
be yourself. Like,
Yeah,
Be
But
be yourself, which is like I'm like that's an interesting. I don't like. Would anyone ever use the phrase "Hey say"
in rock music? Yes, I feel like I hear those types of lyrics all the time.
Hey say specifically those two words in that
I
order.
will say in the Japanese version,
I've never heard anyone say that ever in my life.
I mean, in the Japanese version, they also chant that part in English.
Right. And just quick, that was I think the Blitzkrieg Bop Ramones reference that they mentioned in the extra features, which is the hey let's go, that kind of
that's what I'm saying. Like hey seems a little bit more familiar to me than
but that's because we're thinking of what those words mean, not that like it's vowels, Hey, like
but I guess sorry, Xanthe. I think what I'm saying is like that's in the idioms of like of just using. I mean, I know that they're nonsense or whatever, but still, like you hear people in English speaking cultures use the words "hey ho," like "hey ho, nobody home." That's like that is a comment. But what I'm saying is I don't know if I've heard anyone use the words "hey" and "say" ever to get together colloquially in a common way, and that's what made it seem
colloquially
different.
like in talking or in singing,
in any setting. Hey, singing,
and
hey
so
ho,
if that's
like
true,
chanting.
what would your next like thought be? So
Well,
okay,
I guess
so if
to
it's
me
never
that's why
happened,
it sounded different, and I was like, interesting. I've never heard "hey say," be yourself. I've never heard anyone chant those words before, so I guess I enjoyed it because it like in some ways it sounded a little different and unexpected than I would normally hear. Like if it was like "hey "Ho, be yourself," I wouldn't have thought anything. I wouldn't even have it be having this discussion, right? So to me, that was one example of when the lyrics sounded just different to me.
Maybe
Yeah.
it's a command from the band for you to say, "Hey, say, be yourself."
Oh,
Kind
maybe
of a
that's
thing.
right.
Everyone say
That's
it. Hey,
interesting.
say, be yourself.
Oh,
But
I didn't even
usually
think of
when you
that.
would say, but usually when you would say something, you'd be like, "Let me hear you say." You might say like,
Yeah,
"Let me hear you
totally.
say," right?
When you
But
keep saying
hey,
you, that you're
say.
basically
When
talking
I
about
say
you, what
this,
you
you
would
say
say.
it.
Not everyone would. I mean, I know you're using you in the universal sense, but like it's actually, but it's
I
not
guess
even.
I'm talking about cultural expectations, and I'm saying I've never heard a band ever chant the words "Hey, say." Have you? But I've heard a million people chant, "Hey, let me hear you say," or "Let me hear everybody say." I've heard that a million times. I haven't ever heard a band ever say, "Hey, say," right?
This
Yes, but
just
this
means we
feels
got to
like
start this band.
this feels like a yeah. Since we don't have data for like all of, we can't really prove any. This is all just anecdotal. So like, I don't really know what I've heard. I know which things
Uh,
sound more familiar and which things sound less familiar,
yeah.
but the feeling of hearing lyrics being performed and them feeling unfamiliar is more familiar to me than hearing lyrics and feeling like they're familiar. Maybe that's because
I
I'm
see.
autistic, but like I feel it gave me the same sort of listening to just like things in my native language, English, in a
Uh-huh.
daily basis in a just regular life, listening to things all the time. I'm always like really tripped up by what words are happening.
Oh,
And
okay.
so it doesn't feel this felt just as awkward
Gotcha.
as
Gotcha.
regular pop and rock music does to me. Like,
Interesting.
and
That
Well,
is
no,
very interesting.
Palatine and
yeah,
I,
and
we
that's
were
just
having a little bit of a conversation about this yesterday too in DMs, but yeah, this is a good point. Like music isn't necessarily constrained by the lyrics having to make perfect grammatical sense. But yeah,
totally.
even
In a
beyond
lot of
that, I think
songs,
it's just
yeah.
like obviously like because so many of these things that seemed awkward to English speaking listeners were things that were written in the Japanese version as well. So that's not the result of um, dub translation or whatever.
Totally.
And a lot of like Japanese music is written with English parts in it. Like a lot of
Mhm.
music, in the a lot of pop music in Asia period has, is like bilingual by
Yeah, with
design.
Yeah,
little
totally.
peppers of different
Totally.
words peppered in, right?
Yeah, like
Hmm.
English is
Yeah.
like always there's I feel like I always hear like English coming in at certain points. And I noticed that even like at the beginning of the episode when they're I noticed that the Star Waver, the band, was Star Waver in both languages.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And also they introduced the instruments. Like the instruments were spoken in English in the Japanese version. Like they're like blah blah blah, blah guitar, drum set, like
The
um
what was it? The
Oh.
versatile cluster drums.
yeah, they said cluster drum.
I, I want that.
Wait,
And
no, that's a common type of drum, everybody.
oh, it is. See,
No, I'm just kidding. I'm just
come on,
kidding.
come on. See,
Yeah.
I'll believe that. I'll believe
For
that because now I
species that
want
have
one.
like two bodies.
I want the. I want
I loved
the.
that drum set.
Yeah, I want the.
I bet you
Not only
did.
the flaming bass, but I want the starship that folds out into a stage.
I know.
which
Stage in a
which we know
box.
there. Yeah, there are trucks that do that. I've worked on those trucks before. Where the whole sides just open up and it becomes the whole production stage, and then it just drives off to the next place, kind of a
Very
thing. But
handy. Keep it
oh, it's
all.
great. They're awesome. But a whole starship to do that they kind of like
I
lit.
don't know.
Do they live in the starship? I imagine they do. It's a
I think they do.
small little clunker van for them.
This is a great point, Sarah Dwin. Am I saying your name right? I hope I am. Some of that translation awkwardness worked really well for the Star Wars setting, I think. This kind of segues to a topic that I wanted to discuss that of how Star Wars was this, how Star Wars obviously loaded question, and I say that knowing that like when people say that they usually mean like did it pass the Star Wars rating? Like did it pass the Star Wars bar? And I know that none of us mean it that way, but like um musically or as an entry in Vision's period, what did you all think of it? And you can tell us in the chat too.
I felt that I almost wasn't even thinking about that because I was just having fun hearing punk rock, metal, J-pop, pop punk, all these like different fusions and different styles of just the rock genre in a Star Wars thing, going, well, this is cool and refreshing in a way. And I think what the studio Colorido, which was the animation studio that did this and directed this episode, their director mentioned, actually flat out said, like, you know, Star Wars music has such, like, what is Star Wars music? It has such a connotation to it and almost a weight to it that they wanted to just almost not do that and completely change that whole aesthetic for this episode, but then still brought it into the Star Wars universe by giving. I feel like this was the only episode that had any canon characters in it, right? Like from the other series, we have Boba Fett, we have Bib Fortuna, we had Jabba the Hutt,
Yeah, I think
and a setting and things like that. And I'm pretty sure I can't remember any of the other, you know.
Just real quick, Xanthe, you're caught up, right? You watch everything?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I am.
I had a minor freak out, and I was like, Justin, zip it.
No,
No, I finished it before Justin.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, I was the one that was behind this round.
I just wanted to check. I've messed that up before, so
I appreciate you checking though, because James knows how I get about that.
Yeah, I think you're right, Justin. I don't think there were. I think this was the only one with canon characters in it. I think so. I think you're right. I would. This kind of goes with what I was I think I was saying last week, which was like this whole series, this whole project, this Visions project is so refreshing because it seemingly has somewhat of like it has an answer to this, like, how do you just like relieve some of that pressure of like every freaking thing that comes out in Star Wars having this like expectation to live up to and this canon to preserve and these little plot lines to fill in for the fans that are expecting to see it and etc. This series in some ways like relieves itself of that and just being like, we're going to do with Star Wars what we want. You don't have to be stressed out about it being canon or not. Like, you don't have to think about like, I wonder when Boba Fett went to pursue this band, because I read in the Boba Fett comic that he was actually here around that time. You know what I mean? So, or like he didn't get his armor, you know, because whatever. The point is that like this series kind of doesn't have that issue. And to me, I think the answer to your question, Xanthe, is like, I think in some ways, this whole series has passed that test for me because it basically has enabled me not to care about that and just enjoy it. And so that's kind of my answer for every single one of these episodes. Is like, even if I didn't like it or dislike it, this is one of the few things in the last couple of years that I'm like not stressed out about whether I think it's like Star Warsy enough, because I kind of wanted it to be as weird as possible.
Totally.
And it delivered that for me, you know?
I have two thoughts. First of all, yeah, that's awesome. Caradwin, I think that's correct. But like how George Lucas wanted to capture the feeling he had when watching Kurosawa for the first time, foreign but familiar. Okay, so I've been thinking about the word canon and the Star Warsiness of things. I feel like when we talk about canon as fans, we first of all are not necessarily talking about the same thing. I feel like there are two distinct veins to canon. One of them being a substitute for just the word accurate, real, historical. Like, did that happen? Like canon as like a tangible construct. You know what I mean? Like, is that true? Is this actually part of the story? Does it count? Is it real, or was it in someone's dream or vision? You know, and so there's that level of canon, which is more so concerned with maintaining the through lines and just, you know, the tangibleness of the world, of the Star Wars world. Basically, you know, it's like the historians just really wanting to know what is what, you know? And I don't think there's a bad thing with wanting to know what is canon. Like, I know there are a lot of Star Wars fans that are like very into keeping track of the lore and everything. Like, I don't
Oh,
like
yeah.
shout out to like
Oh, yeah.
Darth Chaco and stuff like that. But like, there is another side of canon that when people talk about canon, sometimes they mean, does it feel in the spirit, interpreted and stylistically in the same, like, you know, a much more subjective thing. And I think
Yeah.
with Visions, it's interesting because in hearing people comment about it, there are conversations both about what is canon, like what is historical fact in Star Wars, and there's also been discussions about whether things felt Star Warsy, like whether and sort of rating things along that scale, more like in a vibe. So like Tatooine Rhapsody, for example, like I have heard takes that like the music didn't feel Star Warsy, or like actually it's probably more illustrative if I bring up on the flip side, you know, pick any of the other episodes. Like we talked about the duel last week, and we were talking about how that felt very, very Star Wars. Like it was very obviously, the music is obviously very in the style of Star Wars, and I would say like most of the episodes in Visions were in some way directly drawing from the language, you know, the musical language that Star Wars has set in motion for decades. And I guess where I'm going with this is that to me, this episode musically felt the most Star Wars to me. Even though it sounded the least like what we know of as Star Wars. The music in this episode felt the most Star Wars to me. And I will say that like I went into this episode thinking like I was gonna hate it. Honestly, I thought I was not gonna like this. Like as soon as it started, because I tend like 95% of the stories that you put in front of me that are about like the power of music and like musicians in the front, like I hate all of them. Like I do not like stories. I don't like films about music. I just think I can't get past the way it's portrayed and like sort of like the fakeness of it all and whatever. But like this, for some reason, like it's cheesy. It's like about like all these things that normally don't work on me. It all of it like super worked on me in this short.
Cool.
And I think that like other shorts sounded like they were trying to go for this ideal of what Star Wars sounds like, but put their own spin on it. But sort of like how they said in the extras, how they didn't even want to approach that. They wanted to go at it from a novel place, but the well of inspiration is still from the same place without trying to actually retrace any of the steps. I think to me that resulted in a more like imaginative, like a more unique take, like a more unique representation of Star Wars than it is to constantly tread in John Williams' footsteps, which every other composer envisions, except for I think one episode. But in all the shows and everything, is like it's all like George, you know, it's all someone's version of like John Williams' Light, and that's just how it is. Like even if they're really great, you know. And Tatooine Rhapsody wasn't that. It was like its own thing. I felt like we were getting a glimpse at like the creators of this as artists, and that was like really special.
I love that's beautiful, Xanthe.
I like that. Yeah.
Yeah, totally. I guess yeah, that's really interesting. I think in so many ways, this is more in the spirit of the innovation of Star Wars, and the, you know, just the pushing the envelope that we want, you know, than just recopying and just staying on brand, like soullessly staying on brand. You know,
Yeah.
yeah. So I love that. I love that appreciation of that. And here's the other thing is like we're all musicians and somewhat musicologists in some ways, like unofficially, like we all know lots of music from all over the world and stuff, and we know how different genre is just from like state to state of our own country, not to mention like going across the globe and hearing genre music just played around the world. So when some people are just make statements like, oh, that doesn't sound like what would happen in Star Wars, it's like, yo, this is a galaxy. Like you're telling me that nobody like figured out, like, you know what I mean? Like there's like infinite worlds in this galaxy compared to just our single planet that we live on. So are you telling me just from a pure logical statement that we can't expect something to sound like punk rock? And that's like completely out of, that's I mean, the Cantina Band is
I'm like,
basically
what else do they think
Right.
they're hearing? Do these other
Right.
things that they're hearing sound completely like totally new genre?
The Cantina Band is basically just a swing band with a steel drum in it. That's like, that's basically what that music is. Let's be real here. And back in 1977, the steel band was a lot less common to most Western audiences than it is today. So anyway, but I digress. The point is like, to me, like music, I'm ready for more weird music, like Jabba Flow from Force Awakens. I love that, like a reggae version of a Cantina Band,
Well, okay. Interesting distinction, because we're kind of talking about both diegetic and non-diegetic music, and I think Star Wars has always somewhat, I think they've been more diverse on the diegetic side than they have on the like non-diegetic side. Whoa, I'm super laggy. Oh, okay. They've been more diverse in the diegetic side. So like the source music, the music that we hear in the world. And I think that's like a place where they so far have felt more comfortable exploring, because that it's just like cat.
Hi, Annie.
There's just
because they can explain it away.
And because
they can explain it away.
Yeah, it's like picking the costumes of these aliens. Like you can also pick the music. But
in Solo, you've got that like kind of like, loungy hip hop tune,
Yeah,
in
Chicken in the Pot.
Story.
But
yeah.
I
know, I hear what you're saying.
What's unique is the storytelling, and that's something in Star Wars that I feel like, if Star Wars is like a history. It's like this lost civilization that we're all learning, and so like it's like a separate thing in my mind. And every story, every Star Wars film, book, like TV show that we see is filtered through the people who have discovered that story and decided to tell it. And so far, my cat is doing some stuff. And so far, it's been, mostly a monolithic type of storyteller. And so Tatooine Rhapsody was like still Star Wars. It's still the same Star Wars universe, but like through different eyes and ears, through someone who is a different kind of narrator. And totally. I mean, I guess Visions in general was like that. But yeah, I think that's something that I'm getting at too.
Yeah.
Caradwin says, never forget that John Williams shreds an electric guitar on the Attack of the Clones soundtrack. Yeah, by trying not to be like Williams, they are better able to emulate his creativity. Exactly. Because it's about being creative, not about being John Williams.
I wonder if he hired the John Williams, the guitarist, to play it on his... so, just so everybody knows, there's a classical guitarist named John Williams.
John Williams, yeah.
Xanthe, I saw on your Instagram that you've been practicing playing this song, and so far we've made it like an hour into the stream and you haven't played the freaking song for us. What happened?
I was so excited. I was gonna have to do a performance.
What? Why are you learning it then?
Let's hear it.
Because it was
why?
Fun
because you're a fan or something?
Well, I wanted to like figure out what was happening in it, so there's no better way than to
learn the guitar part for this song.
Well, yeah, because how else? Oh my god.
Let me just grab this real quick. And...
Absolutely. I haven't played it since that day. But I was just, I was trying to figure out what was happening in it so that we could talk about it. And basically, it is exactly like what you would expect from that genre. It was like, power chords, sort of like the same 3 chords,
Oh yeah. And I love to talk because it's I want to hear you play it and then I want to talk about it.
I'm not going to play it.
Come on.
Oh
Let's hear it.
This is the worst.
Come on. I play guitar badly for everybody.
This is horrible. What were you gonna say?
Oh, I was gonna say I'm ready for you to start playing.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Jonah wants you to play too.
Okay. All right. I'll explain. Okay.
Oh,
I'll explain what's going on. All right. So I have the lyrics. Okay. So the structure of it is the the main part that is recapped, or it's teased at the beginning of the episode, because this song is like, clearly it's like the song they always perform, right? So we all noticed that this song was also, they were also stopped midway performing the song at the beginning of the episode.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They were trying to
play this song, and it was only the "You Are Okay" part.
You know what I liked? This reminded me of Anakin in the pod race in Phantom Menace, where he's like, where Kitster is like, well, he's never finished a race before, but don't worry, like they've never finished a gig before. They've never finished a gig before, and like it finally matters that they finished the song, and it's like their lives are on the line. It kind of reminded me of Anakin, and it's in Bunta. It's in the Bunta Eve pod race,
which I loved. Yeah, that was great.
I gotta think that might have been intentional. In some ways, you know, because they could have performed for Jabba in a million other different places, you know. So it's like they finally finished the race, just like Anakin finally finished.
Well, probably because it's a good public execution place.
Yeah,
probably. Yeah.
My question is,
hey, why aren't you playing, Xanthe?
After Justin's question, I'll continue.
I was just gonna say I kind of want to know why they've never been able to finish a gig. If does Boba Fett just appear at every gig, and they're just all constantly on the run?
Well, they're on the run,
or they've just been having the worst gigs every time they get halfway through the song.
Honestly, when they said that, like, I felt the struggle of like a struggling band, and when they said like it would just be nice to finish a gig sometimes, I was like, oh, it's that bad. Like, oh, that's a really low bar. I feel horrible for them. Okay, so the chords go E, B, A, E, basically on loop at the beginning. So it's like, nope. That's what it is. I don't know if you can hear.
Oh, yeah.
So I can't sing the words while I play, but it's like, come on and lose yourself now, everybody. Crowd cheers. And then,
are okay.
And then the verse.
I felt very comforted by that. I don't know if anyone else felt.
You are okay.
Maybe honestly, maybe I was having a bad day, or when I first heard it, I was just like, oh, I'm gonna be okay.
I know.
Okay.
And then, see, this song is not like rocket science in its harmonic construction. And then we get the same exact chords for the verse.
Oh yeah.
But a little bit of a different. I think it's. Can you something like that? And what's happening drumming wise, James?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of this beat, this thing. Well, first, when we start off with it, we start off with like.
Oh yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4.
Oh yeah. Right? Yeah, that kind of thing. So we get a little bit of that boom, chuck, boom, chuck, boom, chuck, two snare hits first and then one snare second. Right?
Now, question, because it's a double or it's a cluster drum, were you hearing like double drums or were you kind of just hearing normal drums?
No, they're just playing regular drums.
Oh, okay. That would have been cool.
No. Sound design.
3 drum sets playing. Oh.
Well, here's the thing: is that when you have a drum set that big, 90% of it is just for show anyway. So, just a reminder, y'all. Like, drummers only have 4 limbs. Like, ideally, you know. So having lots of drums, you can't play them all the time anyway. So there's only specific context that you can play all your cymbals and everything, right? So drum beats can't sound that different, you know? Nobody actually does want to hear a drum beat where the cymbal switches every other note, right? Like, see, like
how cool though would it have been though if they would have if for this song they would have gotten 6 hands and 2 feet and made a
Right.
drum part that could work like that.
It's like if anyone's ever seen the music video for Monkey Drummer by Aphex Twin.
Yes.
It's basically a robot with a million limbs playing a million different drums, and that's kind of what Justin's talking about right there.
Great.
So
Great.
okay,
Or the Anna music, if you remember those.
a really big part of a really big awesome thing about the sound mixing in this. Whoa, you're lagging so much. You're like talking, but I can't hear you.
Talk about me.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can see myself just like waving
Yeah,
around.
you're
or
just
whatever.
waving, and I was like, can't hear you.
Very
So,
odd.
One thing, and this was like the main thing that I wanted to bring up in the stream, but of course I forgot about it till just now, an hour and 10 minutes into it. But like the sound mixing in this episode was really interesting, and especially during the performances. And I think that for me is like one of the things that won me over, because like, you know how when you watch a movie and there are people that are about to sing or play, okay, you know, like in Scott Pilgrim versus the World, and
Mm-hmm.
Brie Larson's character sings Black Sheep. Like, you know, when that happens, you normally they get out stage, like you might hear like a kind of a fake like mic check. You might hear like a little bit of feedback, and then
Sure.
it sounds like you just dropped a record onto like a perfect studio recording.
Yes.
Yes. Absolutely.
And it's like you know, obviously the actor was singing this in the studio. It's very auto-tuned already and everything. But that temptation was resisted in this episode, and it is like actually mixed like a real performance. And with all of the imperfections, I mean, probably not all of them, but like with a passable number of, you know, a plausible number of imperfections. Like if you listen to, I mean, on both versions, but like especially Joseph Gordon-Levitt's version, like he's a little bit sharp. You can like it sounds like nervous energy, you know.
Yeah.
And it's just not like a crystal clear recording, you know.
Agreed. Yeah. I know. I was gonna say it was interesting to hear like his voice kind of falter, and that added some of the emotion to that scene as well, because you can tell that like his friend's life is on the line, etc. But you know, his voice kind of starts to gel a little bit more with the performance as he goes on. He gets a little bit more
Which is
confident.
super realistic.
Exactly. Which is real. That's really, it was really cool. Yeah. I like that. Plus, that's kind of punk rock, you know. It's like, don't actually fix the vocals, you know.
Let it be.
Yeah, there's no way they're gonna play Jabba's, you know, stadium and not have it be perfect. Plus, they were like, you know, this is probably they were about to be executed potentially. So, honestly, I would be very nervous.
Oh yeah.
How do we like the parallels between the Luke Jabba speech in Return of the Jedi and Jay's Jabba speech? Jabba, you have what, like, you know, in Return of the Jedi,
One
you have
more
one
chance.
chance or die, and he's like, Jabba, how many you want to be our first sponsor? How funny it would be if you switched those dialogue
You
in
see
Return
pod
of the
racers with
Jedi.
Star Waver on them.
Yes.
But in Return of the Jedi, Luke's like, hey, Jabba, how about you be our sponsor instead of kill us? You know.
I love that Jabba went with that. You know.
I look at he sees some money to be made, and he's all good.
Okay.
He's like, oh, he's like, what?
In a way, he got Guy back into the syndicate. Now see, the joke's on them. Now Jabba controls the band.
Exactly. They're the Frank Sinatra of Star Wars, in that they've got like this mob backing them. You know, they've got the mafia backing their career from now on. You know, just like Frank Sinatra.
Did that happen with Frank Sinatra?
Falcon has like a.
Did that happen with Frank Sinatra?
Oh yeah.
The mob backed him?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
It'd be great if we saw the Millennium Falcon with like a Star Waver sticker on the side of it.
No, it's doing those cloud trails. Star Waver.
You know what, this whole scene is somewhat similar. Do you know the musician Fats Waller?
No.
Yes.
Fats Waller's played lots of like boogie woogie and you know, old, not really ragtime, but just like really early blues and jazz pianist and amazing band leader and singer. And there's this story where he was kidnapped by Al Capone, and basically forced to play for Al Capone's like party all weekend long, and like and then like Al Capone dropped him back off at his house, and apparently he like made more money in that weekend than he'd ever made in his entire life. So yeah, this is kind of reminding me of like, the Jabba is the Al Capone kidnapping the band to, and they're playing for him kind of thing. So
Well, fun times.
oh yeah.
Fun times for Star Waver. I hope they survived this.
Yeah, I hope so.
Does anyone else have any more thoughts about this episode? Anything about the sound? The lightsaber is cool. The fact
I
that,
want a lightsaber microphone.
yeah.
I liked. I guess this isn't technically about the sound, but I liked that we had a lightsaber that what didn't end up being a lightsaber in the end. I mean, it was a lightsaber. It was turned
It
into
was
something
broken.
else.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was broken, and we had a Jedi that wasn't being a Jedi.
Yes.
It was. I don't know. I kind of really liked that, especially with a number of these other episodes are so lightsaber centralized, which I kind of liked. But it was interesting that all these different studios all came up with their own way to work with the lightsaber in a way. And this was one of the more unique takes on a runaway Jedi or on the Jedi in exile in a way. Still keeping it. Almost tried to defend Guy and then didn't work out. But the sound, I felt like the sound, the mixing was all just fantastic. Exactly what you were saying, Xanthe. The idea that it was a live show, and even in the that small
Beginning.
venue, it
Totally.
sounded different than it sounded like in the big thing. There's a great feedback screech that happened when he didn't mention, what was it, V5 on the electronics
Yeah.
or what it was, in there. But I felt like all this, like, because I'm usually like listening for all these sound effects and stuff like that. What I appreciated about this episode, that all that really took like the back seat to the music.
Mm-hmm.
This was very much of
like you were drawn into the story.
Yeah, super musical episode. That was like the complete forefront of the sound this round in a way.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point. It just occurred to me that people call Star Wars period like a space opera, right? So going back to the rock opera discussion, because this was also so musical, just like, Star Wars is always very musical, but this was rock music. So I could see how it maybe follows a lineage of like, maybe with some awareness of Star Wars being called an opera.
Yeah, it's a good marketing decision to call it a rock opera for sure.
A rock space opera. In that order.
What do you think, James?
Yeah, I just I want to see more. I honestly, I mean, I'm obviously biased, but I just want to see more musicians in Star Wars, and maybe even focused on, less in a background. Like they're always just the band in Star Wars. They're never like, I really liked like the little subplot of like Solo when Beckett is like talking about how he really wants to learn how to play that instrument. I just like seeing that music is playing a part in people's lives in a real way in Star Wars. That feels realistic to me. They're people, they enjoy media and they enjoy culture and music. I like to see little bits and pieces of when music makes its way into just the normal lives of the people that we see on screen. So yeah, like that little scene with Woody Harrelson, like, I never got to play that Valacor, it's just like such a weird little detail, so I like it.
Okay, like one of the most exciting moments one of my most exciting moments on when I was on the TV show Glee is, the definition, like basically the band is there just to pop up whenever the Glee Club feels like singing and has their storylines taking place. So the musicians are always like, in the back, obviously that's fine. That's the point. So we're in the background, we're just the band and whatever. And anytime a character, like one of the main characters, did something like touched an instrument or like looked at it or like acknowledged the instruments in any way was like super exciting, so exciting to us. And there was one episode where there was like one close up on my face on something happening that wasn't playing, and that was like an earth-shattering moment. Like everyone who knew me who watched was like, "Oh my god, they actually like showed you when you weren't playing."
Like you're a human being in the room.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yes. It was like
And just materialized music.
And so yes,
Right.
I love that this was about a band. I related so much.
Oh yeah, of
It
course.
gave me so many feels. I like almost cried at some point. I mean, I was feeling it. I was
Yeah.
like, you know, I know what it's. I mean, when you're a musician, I feel like it's hard to avoid some knowledge of what your proximity to other professions are, and like I'm the musician of the family, and I relate to, you know, leaving other opportunities to. And this is my passion, and I relate to the feeling of powerlessness with you. Like we're just a band, like we're just a band, like sort of like this questioning of like, do we actually have any power? And the reclamation of like that power of like, yeah, we're just a band, and like able to use what they are to still evoke something, even though he's not a Jedi anymore. Like he's still able to, you know, power of music, you know.
Oh yeah, he doesn't have to do a Jedi mind trick, right? He just like,
yeah.
you know.
At first, I thought that they were gonna like when he pulled out the lightsaber, like the microphone. I thought for a second like, oh, they're gonna have a lightsaber fight like during the like.
How terrible of a message would that be, right?
And I'm glad
like,
they didn't.
Forget the power of music. Everything can be solved. Everything can be solved by
you use
fighting
the music
people.
as a front to get your lightsaber in.
Violence is the answer, not music, kids.
But we won this one.
We won.
Music won.
Music won out. How glad are you? How glad are we that we're just not like rolling our eyes right now at this episode? You know what I mean? Like
glad.
You know,
we could have had a stream. Don't talk to me about August Rush. Don't talk to me about like.
No, please. This was honestly, so much of it was like pretty spot on.
Yeah.
It was an episode about the power of music without saying through the power of music, friends, we can, you know, or they never, you know, that which is probably what all these other music movies and episodes.
It was from the perspective of the musicians, not from the perspective of like the patrons of the musicians.
Totally.
Or like, you know, the people whose lives they're changing with music. No. Mm-hmm. And that was so awesome. Yeah. Hell yeah.
They really rocked that bubble bowl.
It makes me think the director and writer probably played in bands when they probably I bet that someone on the team has played in a band and kind of knows a little bit about the hustle, and it felt like a personal story. Loved it. Cool. Anyway, thanks for watching this. Thanks for chatting about Tatooine Rhapsody with us. Next week we'll be talking about the twins. I'll schedule that once the three of us talk about what time and date that will be.
Yeah. And I'll try to wear this shirt again, I guess, since this is this is who's on this shirt right now. It's going to be a good episode or a good chat. There's lots of pretty extreme things. I'm very curious to hear Justin's. That seemed to me some of the more like tropey anime moments of this season. So I'm excited to hear what Justin has to say about it.
Okay, how about the three of us? Let's not talk about it beforehand, so we don't know how we feel about it.
Yeah. Okay. That's as much as I'll say. Yeah.
Okay, we'll save it for the stream. I'm not going to tweet about it or anything. Which is where I run my mouth. Anyway,
get that guitar up, Xanthe. Right. Yep. Count us off. Or I guess I should, right?
Yeah.
Count us off. All right.
All right.
Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4.